So, welcome to the Last of Us Part 2
Mm.
Spoilercast with, the only two people who have played and finished the game. Mr. Scott Sedman was meant to be here, but
Hmm.
he's not played the game, so we don't care about his opinion.
No, he has watched it all. What did he say? He watched it all on YouTube, though.
yeah, which would have been a really interesting point of view. So I'm sure we'll get him on at some point
Yeah.
to talk about it. But Ben, you finished the game
Hmm.
last week? Yeah, and I finished.
Yes.
Yes, I finished it maybe about 2 weeks ago. I don't know what is time, but I've had more time to ruminate on it than you.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. I
Um,
think it took me about 3 weeks to get
yeah,
through it, and those are lots of little sessions. 20 minutes here,
mhm,
20 minutes there, a
yeah,
couple of bigger, few hour, 2 or 3 hour sort of sessions. But
mhm.
yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a long game.
Mm.
I was just getting like the run of the show together, and it's like, oh my gosh, so much happened in
Yes.
this game. And it's all told out of sequence in a non-linear fashion, so it's even harder to remember. Oh, this went here, that sequence went there. But
Mm.
so I'm sure we'll get like the we'll try and hit the big strokes, but
Yeah.
it'll probably be all over the place at some point. But we'll probably go in the best order that we can. I imagine it's going to run on a bit long, so we might do it over two parts, but we'll cross
Yeah.
that bridge when we come to it.
Cool.
So first of all, Ben,
Hmm.
your relationship with The Last of Us. For me, I've always said it's my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
Even when I wasn't enjoying this one, that wouldn't have changed. Or when I did eventually finish this one, I think it's actually probably an overall better game than the first Last of Us.
Hmm.
It's still my favorite game. So how are you coming into this? I know that you very much like The Last of Us, and
Yes.
were you like me? Do we really need a sequel? Or...
I think, and I know through the multiple conversations we've had, you were very much on the stance of I don't need any more from The Last of Us, and it'd be interesting to see what you think after obviously completing the second one, whether you think that the story was interesting enough to be told.
Yeah.
I think I love The Last of Us. It is one of my favourite games ever. Really fell in love with Joel and Ellie, and just the dystopian, derelict, dark world that had been created and produced. I don't think the second one has stopped me at all loving The Last of Us. I still think The Last of Us is one of the best games I've ever played. I think the second game does things a little better,
Yeah,
and I
for
think
sure.
in some parts it does things a little worse.
Okay.
We'll probably come on to sort of
Yeah.
bits and pieces as we talk through things.
Yeah.
I don't think much worse at all. It is not an inferior game to the first one by any means.
Yeah.
It's probably a better game than the first one, really, in terms
Yeah.
of sort of gameplay wise, the feel of the characters, the weight of them, how it sounds. All of those things have just been improved upon so much.
Yeah.
So,
It does what a sequel should do. Like it elevates everything up like a few extra notches. It's why Ori and the Will of the Wisp is like my favorite game this year, because it just had a good like platform, and it
yeah.
just like turned all these levels and these notches up a few dials. And we'll get to the story because that's very subjective, but objectively, really, like as you say, the sound design, the feel of the gameplay is all better in this game.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll stick on gameplay. I actually want to come to like probably the best thing about this game is the accessibility options. Just wondering if you toggled with any of those, because it goes into things like, yes, if you're colorblind, or you're hard of hearing, and it just does things like, oh, I just don't want the enemy AI to see me if I'm prone and stuff like that. So I was wondering if you messed with any of that.
I have done. I'm currently
Mhm.
going through a second playthrough.
Okay.
Because there's definitely when I looked through the chapter select and looked at all of the artifacts and trading cards, all of the collectibles, I actually missed quite a lot. I think I managed to get all of the workbenches because you come across them quite naturally. I think I'd done all of the safes as well.
You
I think
should
I had the
pop a
trophy for that.
trophy if you got. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I was like, oh, I popped that trophy and I was like, oh, that's surprising. They didn't seem that out of the way. Maybe that's intentional design, but yeah.
There's a couple which you have to sort of find. I've just finished the first area of Seattle through my second playthrough, just on the courthouse, and the hotel, and there's a couple in there where you could miss them completely. You know, you might not even go to the bank, which is an extra area. There's one which is kind of hidden behind an overturned. Is it an overturned truck or on its side truck? And you have to, like, you know, glance through a gate, and it is round sort of the corner. So there's a couple of things like that you could miss. But whilst I'm going through my second playthrough, I have turned on some of the accessibility options. So I've put on the option which allows you to track your collectibles. So when you come up to one, it's got a tick over it to tell you whether you've picked that one up or not. And I've also tweaked the listen mode, so it kicks up a lot quicker and the radius is a lot bigger. Generally, because I'm just trying to clear through areas a lot quicker. I want that fast, frantic play. But this kind of allows me to do that even better, so I can get into an area, ping up my listen mode, and actually, rather than just maybe two of the enemies showing up, which are sort of the closest within 20 meters, I'm seeing 5 of them in 30 or something. And
in the whole of Seattle.
That's it. I know where all 4,000 enemies are dotted across. It's just allowing me to move through areas a lot quicker. And just to experience more of the environmental storytelling and all of those notes and things like that. So I did play around a little bit with changing, because you can change the colours of yourself and enemies and items as well. But I didn't feel it while I was playing through. It was a bit too kind of jarring, you know, to have this blue character, this red enemy kind of running towards you, and all these yellow
Sonic and Tails.
yes. How about yourself? Did you toggle with accessibility much?
Yeah, because you told me prior to the game coming out, it's like, oh, there's a lot of options for like motion sickness, and first few hours of the game I was like, okay, I am starting to feel this. So I turned off like motion blur and was it head bob and was it screen shake? I think those were like it comes under a separate section, which is great. It's like, okay, this is my specific issue, I can just toggle these on and off. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a second playthrough or get any like the platinum or anything, but as someone who has like been an achievement hunter in my dark past, like those accessibility options, just like even surface level, I want all the trophies. It's like, it's so good that it's in the game. And
absolutely,
you got a perfect score on, I think it's called Can I Play That, the accessibility review site, which is, I think, other than like Gears 5, is like one of the few games to get like a perfect score. Like, and I think this goes well beyond Gears 5, but it's good to see like first party games and studios and Microsoft and Sony pushing that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that'll become a standard sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Let's stick on gameplay. What are your overall thoughts? You said that you think it plays better than the first game. Like, in terms of stealth action adventure, like, where would you rank this?
Pretty high. I think it's really fluid. So things like the gunplay feels weighty. There is a speed to it which makes you have to consider using cover. You know, you can't just run and gun through as you could do in something like Uncharted. You very much have to use cover and flow between being a bit more action heavy and into stealth. So suddenly you can kill 2 enemies and 4 more will turn up, and you've just got to completely change your tactic. And it allows you to do that very easily. You know, there's not really kind of, oh, now I have to go into stealth mode. It's just crouch, move slower,
Yeah.
put a silencer on your weapon, use maybe smoke bombs and things like this to create distractions and move around. Like there's a nice arsenal at your disposal to be able to do that and change. And I mean, this is a spoiler cast, so
Yes. Oh, by the way, yeah.
I thought the distinction in the gameplay between Ellie and Abby was really good as well. The difference between those two characters was well realised, and whilst Abby wasn't anywhere near as or she was kind of close to Ellie in her stealth elements, but you felt, or I felt, that actually she had a bit more power to her. Things like the pipe bombs and stuff.
She's Rambo.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I. This is probably up there with like my favourite stealth games. I was thinking like when I was playing it, it's like when did Ellie turn into like Solid Snake and stuff like, and just diving and like, you know, popping off headshots and everything, and it absolutely gives you that freedom of like movement and switching up the tactics, as you say, going from like stealth to into action and stuff like that. I played on normal. I'm guessing you did too. On normal difficulty.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and I think they really tweaked it well, because at first, and maybe probably throughout most of the game, I thought it was on the easier side, definitely compared to the first game, but I realised that isn't a bad thing, because it gave me that freedom to, when I mess up stealth, which is always very often in any stealth game, it's so exciting to then just be like, okay, forget this, I'm not going to save scum, you know, I may not like try and get into stealth again. And I think it's really cool how like enemies, when they see you, they're not like dumb AI who are just like, oh, it's been 5 minutes. They must have gone. They're not here anymore. Let's just go back to our usual patrols. No, they're always on high alert. I think that's really cool. But it makes you, it's better that way, because it's like, oh, I've messed up, but I have the tools. They've given me the tools. They've given me the freedom of movement and stuff to, oh yes, I have to go loud now. And every encounter, it just feels so like white-knuckled, stressful, like just improvising, like using your environment, running away when you have to, and just, it's so good at doing that, like switching from those two extremes. It's not like, I don't know, Hitman, where it's like, oh, if you get into a gunfight, you're basically dead, because that's just the kind of game it is. But no, Ellie can sprint away. You'd think Hitman, being like a super soldier, like clone, he'd be able to, and he can just pull himself up onto buildings, he'd be able to sprint, but no, he just jogs away when he's in a firefight. But that's the game. Whereas this is like, yes, we want to give you all those options, and that's probably why, it's up there with like some of my favourite stealth games, because going loud and is still really fun. You don't feel punished, and you feel like, oh, I just got through this encounter by a scrape, you know. So I really enjoyed that about this game. But I think we should try and move on to tackling some of this Mahusive story. As Ellie would say, that's a big boy, because it really is. But yeah, we'll skip over the first like kind of main bits, because it is just tutorial at the start. I thought the snowball fight was like a really cool way of tutorializing shooting.
Absolutely. Kim was watching me play at the start of the game, and she actually commented, she said, that's really clever. I've never seen like this in a game, to get you to understand how it works. And I said, it feels really good. I don't know whether you can, I assume you can lose that snowball fight by just standing there and doing nothing.
I love how it's like, we hate these kids. Do you want to F them off? It's just like, I think, Uncharted 4 did like, he was up in his loft with like a toy Nerf gun, wasn't he, or something like that, and that was his tutorial for that. But it's really like, Yeah, because you're not going to be thrown into a firefight straight away, so
Yeah.
that was a nice way of doing it. But yeah, you're basically introduced into the game knowing that there are tensions between Ellie and Joel, and it's basically Ellie and Dina, who is my ride or die. I love Dina. Everyone should love Dina. Recounting the night before, which was, it's weird because they actually showed that part of like them in like the marquee kissing
Yes.
at E3. So I had that context. I'm wondering if I never had that context, I'd be like, oh, what actually happened? I wonder how I would have read into that. But even so, that they recounted that, and it's basically, oh, things with Ellie and Joel ain't great. Ellie and Dina have this burgeoning relationship, and yeah, you basically go on patrol, and then we'll just skip forward. It's like then randomly you take control of Abby. So, Ben, were you spoiled on this game? Did you know anything about Abby prior to
I
going in?
didn't.
Or?
I didn't. I was really lucky. I managed to avoid almost everything. I didn't. I didn't know that you played as Abby. And I wasn't surprised when it kicked to her. I just thought, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if it is just this small section to get us to a story point, which it is. But obviously that then comes back a lot in the second half of the game. And I thought, oh, it's just an interesting take. And I even remarked to Kim as you see the ski lodge or the big house up on the hill overlooking that town, I did remark to Kim, I said, oh no, I think this is going to happen. And it did.
Yes.
I didn't quite get the exact method and things like that. But I said, I
the
reckon,
murder weapon, you wasn't sure what
exactly,
it was.
yeah. I said to Kim, right, I reckon these people are out looking for Joel. I reckon he's done something to them, not knowing what that was or anything like that. But yeah, I managed to stay spoiler free through my first playthrough, and just as I say, just thought that it was a good vehicle to kind of move the story along rather than it being, what it actually was.
Yeah, I knew something was up. I just wasn't sure what it was. The moment I knew something was up was when you cut forward a bit, and I mean, I knew they were talking about, Tommy and Joel.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure in like what context. It's like, oh, are they for for malicious reasons or something else?
Yeah.
Or didn't know what it was, and the moment I knew is when Abby eventually, she's running through the snow, and like eventually like 10,000 infected come at her, and you're in this chase scene, and then she meets up with Joel and Tommy, and Tommy introduces them, and it's so good, like just the animation and the motion capture and everything. Abby is her look. She was like, "Oh crap, these are the people."
Yeah, that's exactly the same moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's just so subtle but so brilliant at the same time. But just before she meets Joel and Abby, Ellie and Dina are on their patrol, and they get to that weed farm.
Yes.
which is I burst out laughing when I saw like the gas mask with like the bong attached. I was like, okay, you got to pass. Was it Eugene? You got to spend the apocalypse one way or the other. But yeah, that was just like more time with like Ellie and Dina on their own, which was, we obviously get that in Seattle day one to. Is it just Seattle day one? I don't know. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that part, and it was just like such a natural relationship. They've obviously been friends for a few years, so yeah. I
think
that.
The only part I was aghast at in the weed factory was where she smashed the jar on the floor, and you're thinking, the floor could be wet. Just crack it or something. Don't chuck all these spliffs all over the floor. What are you doing? That's like a week's worth or something.
There might have been enough supply there still. I don't know if it, or was it, I guess it hadn't been tended to for a while. So.
Yeah, I think it was all dead, wasn't it?
Yeah, shame. Poor Eugene. But yeah, we'll go back to when basically Abby kills Joel. Which were you surprised it happened this early in the game?
Yes, I was. I knew that it was gonna. Well, I thought that it was gonna happen as soon as they got to the house and they walk in and Tommy starts talking. I thought, this is it. It's gonna happen this early. Like, I can't see any filler in between. And obviously we kind of take charge of Ellie again before it happens. That is a very short sort of section, so it does come around really quickly. And I didn't know that they were that Joel was gonna die. I hadn't had that spoiled for me, and I think I did feel that there was going to be a big character death, but I thought it was going to be Dina. So I thought they were going to kill her off really early, and that was going to be Ellie's thing. They done very well in their marketing material, Sony and Naughty Dog. There's a scene where Jesse actually turns up in Seattle.
Cool. We'll come to later.
And he grabs her from behind. But in the promo stuff, they cut that then, showing Joel straight afterwards. And I had it in my head that obviously he turns up in Seattle to find her. That's kind of what I built up. So to have that sort of flipped was really good, and I kind of was both like not upset that they'd killed Joel off. I kind of thought, yeah, this makes sense. I absolutely understand why they've done this, but it kind of it just enshrined in me that this was Ellie's game. Rather than the first game was Joel's game. Yes, you played as Ellie for a little bit.
The first one was Ellie's game as well. Like, in a strange way, like that was more of a coming of age tale for Ellie. And Joel was just the vector that we played as to see Ellie's journey. But Joel's an old man, and he's so far gone. Bless him, you know. He had what was coming to him, so it was like I love Joel as a character, despite his flaws.
Yeah.
But he had it coming, because I'm very much in the camp of what he did in the first game was wrong. It was like, no, I do not have children, so I'm coming from a very, this is what I do to save humanity, and you know, which is probably a position none of us can actually put ourselves into, and I'd probably just like flip-flop and just save her as well at the end of the day. But like from you know, just thinking about it, I'll just be like, no, I'd have to do it for the sake of humanity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's points in the first game where you realise that Ellie has become like more to Joel, and it isn't sort of like a replacement daughter. It's kind of her own, has her own relationship with him, and he feels the same way about her as he did with Sarah. And I don't think it's through I don't think it's him thinking, I couldn't save Sarah, I've got to save Ellie. I think it was more just, I got to save Ellie. And I can completely understand why the character made that decision, and why they made that decision for the story as well.
And I love that decision, and I'm glad that wasn't a choice at the end of the first game. And I knew why Joel did it, but it's like it's kind of, it's so nuanced, because it's like, oh, this feels abusive at the same time. It's like he's lied to her what actually happened. I mean, you hear Ellie saying it in this game, like, you took away my choice to have my life actually matter. And it's like he's completely dependent on her and not the other way around. So it's like, but you see it from the other side as well. But basically Joel had it coming to him. Maybe not in such a gruesome way, but I think later when you find out why Abby is so vindictive towards him, I'll be like, yeah, you got what's coming to you. But yeah, I was surprised it happened so early, but it didn't hit me until you then went to Joel's house. I was like, oh, they're at his grave after that, you know, cutscene happened, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to. When they're saying, oh, we have to go to his house, I was like, oh no, I'm not ready for this, because I was like, I'm gonna find his watch.
Yeah.
It was like, and at that point, I was, I was just like, yeah, here are the tears. Yeah, that's when it hit me. But I'm guessing you were. There was just tears everywhere. Kim was holding you, cradling.
I don't think. at that point, like, I don't think through, say, most of this game that I had that I cried. It was only sort of right at the end that I actually not wept, but had sort of tears and was upset. I think when they went to the house, I was just a bit more kind of like, oh no, it is heartbreaking. It is brutal. But I wasn't quite touched maybe as you were for that moment.
Yeah, I think I was more. I know what the game's trying to do to at my heartstrings. I was just more upset for Ellie. You know, I was like, oh man. And yeah, it's even more upsetting later on when you find out the context of their relationship.
Absolutely,
at that point.
yeah.
Right after that, they're like, yeah, revenge mission time.
And they're like, oh, here's the game, sure.
Yeah, here's the game. So basically, Tommy's already gone at this point to seek revenge. Ellie goes with Dina because Dina's her ride or die. I think Dina goes with her basically because she thinks, I can talk her down. I can eventually get Ellie to be like, okay, you know, you're upset, but it'll pass.
Yeah.
You probably had it coming to him. You know, and I think Dina's always trying to be that balancing force against Ellie's, like, you know, just hell-bent quest on revenge. So
there are lots of little moments, lots of little bits of dialogue. I think when you get into I can't remember when you get into the hotel or somewhere else, but Ellie mentions the WLF being killed by all of the clickers and the infected, and Dina says something like, but wouldn't that be enough? Wouldn't it be good if they are dead, even if it was through all of the infected? I think Ellie says something like, it wouldn't be justice. Or at least, for her it wouldn't be justice. I think you're right that Dina is there just to try and give her more of a level head and slow her down and to try and talk her back.
Yeah, I picked up on that line as well. It's like, no, Ellie's gonna go through this regardless now. She doesn't care, like, how, if Abby were to die in front of her eyes, she wanted to be the one who did it. It's hard for me because, like, Seattle day one, and in fact the whole of the first, like, couple days of Seattle, the first time you do it with Ellie, this was long because they basically packed, like, the whole of Uncharted Lost Legacy into this game, and it was at this point I was like, okay, when I first had a clicker, I was like, yeah, I'm so glad to be back in this world. I love this world. It's so interesting. That horrendous, abhorrent sound of the clicker, it just brings up so many, emotions and stuff like that. But, it was long. I liked looking around the different buildings, like the rope physics. Everyone talks about that. That's great and everything. But I was like, it was at that point where I said, our podcast tanked up. I was like, do we really need this? Do we need another one of these? Because it seems very much the same. And yeah, it was just, it was just so long. It actually has, like, my favourite moment of the game. I was trying to, allude it to you when you were still playing through it. But did you get the moment when she's sitting at the guitar and she plays Aha,
Yes,
Take On Me?
yeah.
That is my favourite moment of the game. And it's like, okay, this long section has been justified just by that part. Because I can't believe it's, like, missable, because it's genuinely my absolute favourite part of the game. What did you think about this part?
Yeah, and I think I thought it was long, and I think this is the criticism that I have with the game, that some sections seem long just for the sake of it. So when you do this part, especially Seattle Day 1, Abby's section felt a little quicker than Ellie's. Ellie's felt a little bit more drawn out. So you have that big open area where you first come to, where you have to go to the court, or you have to find the fuel and go to the courthouse. Then you do the hotel, which is very, very short. It's only a few minutes to get through that story beat. But then you're captured. You have to escape the school. You then go through the streets, and it kind of just ticks on and on and on. And as you say, it's kind of Lost Legacy all in one sort of section, and I think some of that could have been cut, or you could have had much shorter encounters to be able to get through some of this. And some of the areas seem large for the sake of them being large.
Yeah.
I think it's Seattle Day One still where you are, and I think it's just where I
get to. She does a lot
to.
in Day One. Yeah. She does a lot.
She does.
Yeah.
It's there's that section where you move through some flats, apartments. You then get onto the street, and you've got a little gas station and some shops, and you move through there. Then you go back into that gardens bit with the dogs is a bit later, isn't it? But even that section kind of, it just felt like it kept going, and I don't know whether that's because it's there wasn't really an aesthetic change, there wasn't really a tonal change, all from that first part where you arrive in Seattle. It sort of stays the same all the way through up until you get to the theatre, and kind of the day sort of finishes, really.
Yeah, and even after then, because a lot of like Day 2 and Day 3, you are on your own, so you're not having that back and forth like conversation, filling out these characters' backstories and stuff like that. So, and you're not having that banter. So a lot of it is just like going through this world on your own and fighting all these encounters, and it is very one note, and yeah, it did feel quite long for me. In terms of like the big story beats that happens in that, you find out that Dina's pregnant, which I saw coming. It's like when she was like being, feeling sick, she said, "I'm not infected." It's like, yeah, that's because you're pregnant. It was a bit obvious for me. I was like, okay, and I knew that was coming, but yeah, I think the bits that stand out for me, like just in terms of like visually striking moments, was like when you're in the subway when it's all red and you've got like the infected, and it's a WLF at that point, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's like it brings in those left behind mechanics where I just threw a brick and it's like, you lot kill each other and I'm just gonna run. I'm just gonna go on by whilst you lot kill each other.
I waited, and I had to sort of stealth my way around, because you'd be hiding behind something. One of the WLF guys would kind of run around to hide behind where you're hiding, so you're constantly trying to move away from everybody. And I think that section took me maybe 3 or 4 tries, or 3 or 4 deaths to get through, because I wanted all their shit. I wanted all the ammo, all the crafting materials. I wanted to explore the area, take some ridiculous photo mode shots, and just try and get through. And I don't know whether that maybe extended my the feeling that it was a little bit too long as well. I had a few sections where actually I could have just allowed them to fight, ran to the section where I can hold triangle and move on to the next area and just leave them to it. But I didn't. I kind of extended my play a little bit instead.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point to make, because at some points where I was like playing for long sessions and it was like an intentionally scary place, like in that dark subway it's terrific. It's not like, let's say the TV station, which is also visually striking with all the hung bodies, but hanged, I think this is correct, but hanged bodies. But yeah, it's like, I don't like this. This is scary. I'm just gonna run. And at that point, I did that. But yeah, you also find out at that point that, well, Dina finds out that Ellie's can't get infected. She's immune.
Yes.
Thought that doesn't really go anywhere like after, in terms of Dina being aware of that, but it happened.
Yeah. Is that the section right at the end of the subway where you have to, where like almost the horde has turned up and you just have to run, and you've given Dina your mask, I think, haven't you?
Yeah. But yeah, that didn't really go anywhere, which was weird, but she knows now. There you are. What else happened?
It'd be interesting to see if that point, if they do go on and make something else within this world, whether that point comes back to kind of not haunt Ellie, but now someone else knows how much easier it may then be for someone else to overhear or find out. You know, if Dina wants to talk to her about that at some point, whether Ellie has gone back to Jackson before the sort of the last scene of the game, or is on her way back to Jackson to go and find Dina, whether she has that conversation, someone overhears, and suddenly it just raises kind of all hell again. And if it's something that might be kind of returned to a later date rather than dealt with now, which, as you say, it wasn't really.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I like about like the hopelessness of this like world. It's like Ellie's immune. That should mean something, but it doesn't anymore, and that's what makes Joel's decision to take her off the operating table, whether that would have resulted in a cure or not. That's her, and she has to live with that. She has to bear that cross for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
It's like, I am so special, yet it means nothing. And it's like, oh man, that's just heartbreaking. But so I like how it's like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, you're immune. So what?
Yeah.
Nobody can do anything about it. Probably because Ellie and Joel between them just love killing doctors. But but yeah, in that whole Seattle part, this is the longest part of the game, I feel. But what else happens? Yeah, you find out Dina's pregnant. Jesse comes into play in like one of the Seattle days, and
yeah,
I
day
love
two,
Jesse.
I think, wasn't it? Day 2.
Yeah. As you said, that was the cutscene that they showed in the pre-release material. Where it would have been Joel, but it's actually Jesse, and yeah, I love Jesse. Like, I really like his he's got such a smooth voice.
Yeah.
And he's good looking, so that helps as well. But
he's very relaxed for someone in the apocalypse.
Yeah. And I love the remark when it was like when he said, "Oh, you don't go for my type," to Ellie, and Ellie says, "No, Jesse, you're not my type," and he goes, "Asian," and she's like, "Yeah, that's what."
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
It's all his little comments as well. He's like, "Oh, go and see your girlfriend." Like, he comes across as not bitter at all that they've kind of got together on the back of he and Dina sort of breaking up, and it's more a kind of jovial, like, punch almost. It's just sort of banter between them, and you can kind of tell that whilst he does seem, again, like he is has a bit more authority around Jackson in terms of sort of sending people out on scavenging and on patrols and things like that, that he still has a really good relationship with Ellie and Dina, and you can see that there's a kind of at least some kind of almost brother-sisterly kind of relationship between them.
For sure. And like when he found out that she was pregnant, he was like, is she keeping it? It's like, that's ultimately her choice. And I was like, damn, dude, you're a bit measured. You're no wonder he died. Just like, no wonder he died so unceremoniously. Which
absolutely,
which I like. I like how, because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, we want everyone to have like a hero's death, and it's like, no, I'm not in this world. Especially the amount of people you dispatch. Like, not everyone's gonna, have a pyre built for them after,
And I think that's kind of, I think it was more hitting as well. When Jesse did get shot, because it kind of comes out of nowhere, I think it was much more of an oh fuck moment. That suddenly, like, and his body just hits the ground. You're like, oh shit. Okay. What is going to happen now? Leading into that nice transition into sort of the next half of the game. But I think it was kind of just that, just a very well done death. And as you say, not a hero's death. I kind of expected, when all of that kind of was happening, and you think something's going to happen here, I kind of expected Tommy to be the one to cop it then. Instead, and I didn't see Jesse being killed at all.
Yeah, and the game does go on to later, respect him, and like he does get more, more the characters talk about you remembering him
Yes.
in good fashion like after. But yeah, in that whole like Seattle time, you do get like two flashbacks. There was the one with um, Tommy sniping with Ellie and like her and Joel going to fight the bloater. But the one that's more memorable is the museum
Yeah.
for her birthday. Probably my funniest moment of the game when she goes into the when they go into the museum and she answers the phone and she said all the dinosaurs are busy and she was like, oh no wait, here's one. Joel. I lost it at that point, but yeah, I thought that was a really sweet flashback overall, and you got to see Ellie before the weight of the world just crushed her.
And I thought when you alluded in an episode of Tanked Up weeks ago to your favourite moment, as you'd already talked about earlier, I thought you were talking about the Brontosaurus part. Did you experience that with the hats?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. I mean, that's just good on its own, but
Yeah.
no, it was the aha moment, which is my favourite. But yeah, that is, probably close second and stuff like that in terms of moments of levity. Yeah. For sure.
And
I really enjoyed that
It's
sequence.
interesting as well that the moments that we enjoy are these kind of downtime moments, these character building, the relationship building moments where you get to see a little bit more about everyone. With the aha moment, you can see just from the animation and the way kind of Dina looks away and then looks back to Ellie and stuff that she is falling for her even more as kind of Ellie just plays this random song that she thought she'd play.
Yeah.
And the same with the museum moment. You can really tell that Joel is kind of trying with Ellie, that he really wants to do not normal life stuff for her, but to give her some kind of joy in this very dark world. And things like the all of that, the space exhibit and getting in the shuttle and stuff was really good. I really like that scene.
Yeah, really, 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 really good. Naughty Dog are just so good at those moments. But I think the last part of Ellie's first journey that we'll touch on is just the hospital part. I didn't. I really just went into the chase with Nora. Because I was just like, I'm here now. This is where we were always trying to get to, and we had so many, diversions on the way. You have to kill a lot of people and get a boat and stuff like that. It's like, okay, I'm finally here. I'm not going to deal with any of these people in this hospital. I'm just going to go for Nora. Which at the end, like seeing Nora from the other side, I'm like, man, I did her dirty. She likes Ice Cube. It's a good day. She was cool. Yeah. So, what did you do in this section?
I killed everyone.
Okay. How long did that take?
Ages, absolutely ages. But there is a, and again, that's one of the scenes that you had been shown a little bit of. They'd done sort of a walkthrough of that area in sort of promo footage and things. And actually, I think what I did was I waited for everyone to sort of clear away and then went and stood in there's a tower which you can get up onto, and then you can jump between the tower and a little platform which lets you look in to the left-hand side of the hospital. Basically, I just jumped between those and just took people out with the bow and arrow, and the you have the silencer at that point as well, I think. So it was kind of just I stealthed through a lot of that, and it did take a reasonable amount of time. Again, another way that I've extended that kind of play for me. I think overall the game took me about 32-ish hours, something around that. And some of that, probably 2 hours of that is me doing combat when I didn't have to.
Yeah, because I was like, this reminds me of like, was it the hotel in the first game, which is a very long section. I was like, I'm good. I'm just gonna go get Nora, and Ellie beats the crap out of her to get information, which is. What did you think of that scene?
So it's kind of the last scene, isn't it, where it cuts? And I seem to remember does she just stand holding the pole, and then you can press the button to do it?
Yeah, Square or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I sat there for a good sort of 5 or 6 seconds thinking, maybe 10 seconds thinking, should
Yeah.
I do this? And I've got no idea whether it would have cut or done it automatically, but I did press the button to do it. But I definitely felt like I didn't need to, and that leads sort of right towards the end of the game as well, where there's definitely decisions that the characters make where I'm thinking, you do not need to do this. This is just fucking leave it alone. Like just drop it now. You don't need this. And definitely like the brutally beating Nora was definitely one of those points. I like the chase sequence.
Yeah.
It was a nice change of pace to just having a big area and sort of having to kill or stealth around sort of everybody. Something a little bit different. Kind of played a little bit on the idea of, like the boat sequences where you have one path really to kind of get through and you're just sort of navigating around it. But yeah, it was a good sort of scene. And I think for me, for Ellie's sort of story, that was one of the better sections. The chase with Nora, that bit within the bottom of the hospital, that little fight there, which is really tense and really brutal, and then the encounter with her as well, was one of the better parts, I think, of Ellie's sort of entire story, because you kind of see both how brutal she is, but also kind of how vulnerable she can be, and then again how racked with rage she can be. Like her emotions just all over the place in that.
It's really refreshing to see, like, a lead female character, but having that so many ranges and depths, and you get that with Abby later on. But it's just that this point it was like, I waited a few seconds, like I don't really want to bash her skull in, but so let me wait. But it's like, yes, you have to do it.
Okay.
And I like those choices. Like, yes, you do have to do this. This is Ellie's journey. This is Ellie's story. This is what I want to say. And yeah, it's heartbreaking to see like the jovial kid that Ellie is in like those flashbacks and in the first game, and just seeing like what has become of her now, just through like all the grief and having that, as I say, the weight of the world on her shoulders, knowing that she's immune and she can't do anything to help anybody or do anything about it. So I like, even though it is very dark and maybe some people don't like that about the game, but it's like, in this world, it would be hard to stay that, carefree teenager and stuff like that, especially when you've seen Joel get his head beaten in with a golf club.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then, you cut back to the theatre, Jesse gets shot, Abby's there. I was just thinking, how is Abby here? Like, what has happened? And then you switch perspective, you wake up as Abby. What were your initial thoughts when you woke up as Abby? I will say that I was enraged. I was like, I don't care about this person. I hate her. She's killed Joel. I don't want to play as her again.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't think I was that angry. I think I was more intrigued. I think it was more of a, okay, this is where they've decided to take this, rather than kind of it moving into a final encounter. Because I got to that point and I'm thinking, actually, this feels a little short for the game. And then suddenly there's another whole half of it. Maybe not quite, but yeah.
No, it's more than half. I think it is. He's like, another 20 hours. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely thought when Abby turned out, oh shit, this is it's going to kick off now. And then when the change perspective definitely made me like, okay, all right, I'm definitely up for more. I definitely want to see more of what's going on. Super interested to see how they can make me relate to this character now, and how they can portray her and make me feel something, and not just jump off the highest point the first moment I get just to see a death animation over and over again, which I would imagine some people probably did.
Probably. Yeah, you had a much more measured approach. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then when I saw like her picking up like weapons and then she had her own skill tree, I was like, are you really doing this?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like Seattle Day 2 when that title card popped up. I was like, oh no, you lot are committing to this. You lot are making me play as Abby for the whole of the 3 days in Seattle. And yeah, but I mean, we'll come to it later. But by the end of it, I like Abby as a character more in this game than I like. Obviously, because Ellie's choices are. They both make bad choices, but Ellie's just become progressively worse. I really liked Abby, as a character, and she's just a badass. And
Yeah, she is.
And like Laura Bailey is one of the best voice actresses ever, so she did a great job with her. And it's like, they made me, they got me over to the other side. It's like, no, I actually care about Abby, and I like her as a character, despite her flaws and everything. But we'll probably run for just a little bit more because we got through quite a lot, and I think Seattle's a lot shorter than Ellie, so we'll go for a little bit longer and probably just talk about. I mean,
can I return to a point?
Yeah,
back in Ellie's. I can't remember what day it is, whether it's day 2 or day 3 when you. I think it's day 2 when you first come up against the Scars. But
oh gosh, yeah, I completely forgot about that.
I think it's interesting that we had that Ellie almost has 3 very different enemies to kind of play with, and then when you get to Abby, really there's only kind of 2 until a certain sort of turning point again later on. It does become 3, but that's not for very long. But I really like the difference. It's not just humans and infected that are the 2 enemy types. There are these the wolves and the Scars, these kind of 2 different factions which fight and move around the environment very, very differently. And I don't think I found it any harder to fight the Scars. It just made me definitely take a more stealthy and slower approach. They seem to be a little bit more kind of coordinated, at least in those first few encounters that you get with them. And that was just an interesting kind of point to think, well, okay, I'm sort of halfway through Ellie's section, and suddenly they've introduced this completely new faction, this new way to sort of try and play, which does then influence maybe the way you go back and interact or fight with the wolf faction sort of later on. You're learning a little bit more. You're kind of refining your fighting style and technique, and as we talked about earlier, how it flows between those 2. When you can be stealthy, when you can be aggressive, and it was just a nice insert to have something different to break up the kind of the monotony of going humans infected, search the environment, fight some more infected, now fight some more humans. Just something else to not to pace it differently, but just to give you a little bit more variety.
I completely forgot, because Scars are very much more involved in Abby's half. But what I like about it, I'm a bit conflicted, because I love how they have fleshed out this world. Like, the wolves and the Scars have been going at it for years, and that just gives you more context outside of Ellie's bubble. And it's like, yes, this fleshes out more of the world, and you realize that it's not really The Last of Us. There's still other people out there, and they're just as messed up as everybody else. And I like that, and I liked how the Scars were foreshadowed as these. I mean, they were hanging people, gutting people, and stuff like that. It's like that horror element to it. It's like it took a long time before you actually got to the Scars as Ellie, and you got an arrow through your shoulder, which was really surprising and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that, and another part of me is I wish they were just this ever-present, this presence in this world, but you never actually encounter them, and they're they're basically Jaws or something. It's he's not, that mechanical shark that looks fake as hell now is barely in the film, mostly due to budget constraints. But it's that you just don't know whether you're going to see them or not and stuff like that, and there's always this cloud hanging over you. But because they definitely seem less threatening when you meet Yara and Lev, which is the point. It's like, yeah, we want to humanize these people as well. But yeah, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that bit through the forest was scary.
Yeah, there were some moments. I think it's only heightened sort of how they sort of shifted, because none of the human element is really kind of horror. It's more the infected, and the scars kind of sit somewhere in the middle. You know, it's all very dark. It's nighttime. You're moving through the park, and you just
whistling, man.
Yes, that's it. That's the point. It's the whistling. It's kind of, even when you think you've killed all of them, suddenly, and I don't know whether they've done this on purpose, you just hear a little whistle off in the background. Like, shit, are there still enemies around?
You don't know what it means. Like,
yeah.
I think if you put on subtitles, I've heard someone say if you put on subtitles, it describes what the whistle means.
Oh.
But if you're playing it without, it's like, I don't know what that whistle means. Does that mean they've seen me? Does that mean they know somebody's dead and stuff like that? Yeah, so I thought that was like a really simple but effective way of creating that horror and, yeah, that new dynamic to enemy, human enemies.
Yeah.
How much time have you got, Ben?
5 minutes. 5 minutes, probably.
Okay. I think we'll wrap up by just saying, like, you're very much introduced to Abby's crew, like, right at the start, right from the beginning. And her reasons for having that vendetta against Joel. So let's cut to the zebra part, because I think that's the first time we get introduced to, like, Abby a bit more when she's younger. At what point did it hit home that it's like, oh yeah, Joel killed her dad, who's the surgeon?
I think almost straight away. Kind of almost as soon as that scene opened, and she said, like, the first thing she says is, she mentions her dad. I can't remember whether she's just talking to herself, or whether she says, "Oh, Dad, where are you?" or something like this. You're like, oh, I get it. I didn't realise that until you get to the end of that scene and they look out over the hospital. I think I didn't realise up until that point that that he was the doctor, and it was the scene from the first game.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been, you know, when they're looking. I didn't even know what animal it was they were looking for either when you're going through that area, and I thought, I bet they find a trapped animal. He's trying to help it, and Joel like sees like a threatening lion or some shit like that, and just decides to shoot it and kills him or something instead. You know, I had no idea, and suddenly you get through that section and hit that hospital, and I'm like, oh, another moment in this game, like where those story parts from the first just tie in very, very well.
It's when he said, "Oh, I need to prep for surgery," and I was like, "Oh, god damn it, he's the doctor that Joel killed." And then I don't know if it's right after that, but when you see Marlene, which is when she said, "Oh my god," it was when she said, "Okay, we should really tell Joel." I was like, that was just, oh god, you know, like, pit in my stomach. Oh god, you've basically signed your own death warrant and everybody else's by doing what she thought was the right thing. And it's like, yeah. And then I was like, if only you hadn't told him. It was just like, oh. Yeah, I was like, oh, she tried to do the right thing, and then she got a bullet in the head for it, you know? It's just like, and that just made me angry at Joel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's just finish off on saying, okay, you get introduced to Abby's crew. What are your thoughts on them? Like, do you have a favourite other than Alice the dog, of course?
I mean, I think, and I would imagine you're pushed to like Manny more than most of them. He's a little bit kind of cliche in his portrayal.
A caricature. Yeah.
Yep. But he's, you know, well humoured. He helps in, you know, interesting areas and parts. Almost again in a similar kind of role that Jesse was for everybody. You know, he is the slightly more experienced kind of character, telling you how to move around and move through places, especially in that first sort of section where you're with Mel as well. And he's obviously looking out for her too. I think they did well with him in one regard, but not so well with him in as you say, as
Yeah.
kind of a caricature of a character. But I don't think there were any other characters from Abby's crew that I really connected with.
Not even Vita Girl. Vita Girl
You
and
talked
Vita
to her
Boy.
maybe
Not even them.
twice you talked to her maybe.
Yeah, and she says every video game.
Again, like Nora, I can see like I can see why. You know,
I liked Nora at the end. I can't believe I hunted her down and bashed her head in after that.
Yeah, and there's I mean Owen I never took to at all. But
really?
Again, no, not at all.
Owen's like one of my favourite characters.
I don't know. I instantly thought this guy seems like an ass. Just seems like an ass.
No.
I think it's the scene. I think it's the scene on the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's clearly uncomfortable with what you're doing. You're just being an ass.
Well, Owen's hot, so he's good. Yeah, I really like Owen. We'll get to him later because he features more in the story than any of the others. I like the friendship between Manny and Abby more than Manny himself.
Yeah.
Mel, well, less said about Mel. It's funny because like Ashley Birch is probably, I obviously don't know her personally, but she seems like the nicest person on earth. And yet she played Mel so well that it's like, I know this woman. This is that secretly judging woman who will just tell you that with her eyes and not really say it out loud. And I don't like that woman. And it's like, yeah. I just like Abby couldn't care about Mel. I didn't care about
that's
Mel.
fair. Yeah.
I think it was really cool seeing like, oh yes, a pregnant woman can handle her own. Women aren't just useless at the minute they become pregnant. It's like, yeah, she's like what, 6 months pregnant and still going on patrols and stuff like that and holding her own.
Yeah,
so that was cool.
She's been written as a good vehicle for characterization of both Abby and Ellie as well. You know, when Ellie kills her, just her kind of sudden breakdown at the idea that she's killed someone who is pregnant was definitely sort of like a turning point, which you kind of think, oh shit, like she like has the fight gone out of her from this point. Obviously at that point Tommy and Jesse turn up and sort of drag her away, and you just sort of think, oh shit, like this is kind of, is this it?
I was just like, oh crap in the moment, but obviously finding out that Mel's just an arse, I felt less guilty about it.
Slightly.
Which is great. It's like, yeah, this is the game wants you to feel more for these characters and less for these characters, depending on which perspective you play. So that was great. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there because as I say, I think Abby's journey, even though it's my preferred part of the game, than like Ellie's first, like Seattle Day 1 to 3. It's definitely probably a lot shorter to get through. So, and then we got the whole section after that, which is
again another massive part.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about both of those in our next Spoilercast, which will come out next week. But yeah, I enjoyed this. Like, it's been cathartic talking about it. Finally.
And I would assume even next week's going to be even more. We'll both be weeping. You know, we'll get to work some things out. But yeah, I think we're gonna get together again next Monday, probably around the same sort of time. Yeah, and run through the second half or the back end of the game.
Where everything just cemented for me. You know,
good.
It's when it really, you know, all the narrative threads, you know, tied together so well, and where I really started to enjoy the game. So yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Nice.
And allows people, if they haven't finished it yet, to do that second half, even though we've spoiled the second half already.
Bits.
Probably play all of the game before you listen to us. I'll say it now, right at the end.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, then. Cool.
We'll wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
For everyone. Bye.
Bye. Oh, go to outliers.net and all that stuff.
Yeah. Follow us. Bye.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net